Good evening. Good evening and welcome very, very much to Conversations, where we're very pleased to be coming to a taping here in Tripoli, Libya, and happy to welcome to this segment of the program Ali Ahmed Houderi. Mr. Houderi is a member of the People's Committee for Foreign Liaison Bureau, and apropos perhaps of what we want to speak to today, Mr. Houderi was the last ambassador to the United States from Libya before, in a certain sense, we changed and came close to severing relations with that country. Mr. Houderi, welcome very, very much to Conversations.
Good to be here.
At the very outset, I would like to say and express my extreme discomfiture with the civilian loss of life and damage that was caused by the bombing of your city of Tripoli and Benghazi here a year ago. And having said that, I wonder if I might be able to ask you to share with me and with the cable television audience the difference that you sensed as ambassador of Libya to the United States at the conclusion of Mr. Carter's administration and the incoming of the Mr. Reagan's administration. There was a very definite change at that time from a concentration upon human rights to one of anti-terrorism, but you sense very strongly a change in the attitude of the American administration at that time?
Oh yes, I think with all honesty, I would say there is no comparison between President Reagan and President Carter. I think President Carter, as a man with decency, I think with all the differences we had with that administration, but he knew his responsibility as a president, that he should maintain relation with a country like Libya and try to solve some of the difficulties and some of the differences between Libya. In the term of President Reagan, I remember from the first day in office, when he came to, I remember, I'll tell you a story about...
Please.
I was invited to the White House on the inauguration, President inauguration. And I spoke with the President, I chat with him for a while, and then I met several officials, and one of them was Secretary of State Alexander Haig at that time. And I said, we hope that the new administration will try harder to improve relations with Libya and open a new page in relations between Libya and the United States based on respect, on mutual benefit, and peaceful coexistence between nations. And his answer was immediately, he said, we're going to do it one way or the other. So from that point I knew that this administration had already made up their mind about Libya, and they didn't have any idea of discussing the differences, discussing the problems between the United States and Libya, and they came with just certain idea that they have to do something against Libya and its leadership.
Yeah, and the anti-terrorism theme that was to be the keystone of their foreign policy objective came to focus on Libya in a scapegoating way, as you see it.
Oh yes, I think from my point, I think they tried, and they did. They used Libya as a scapegoat, and sometimes they tried to use it as a whipping boy, not for the sake of their differences with Libya, but because they felt it fit their global strategy in achieving other objectives. I think they were wrong because differences cannot be solved by gunboat diplomacy or by threats. But I think even with the Reagan administration, if they gave it enough attention, I think there was possibility that things would go differently. But unfortunately, he was so blind with his administration, and he wants to just do something about Libya.
He wanted to do something about Libya, something about terrorism as he would see it, and he wanted to do that for domestic political purposes, perhaps stirring up the sense of frustration that some Americans felt. We'll have to go back, perhaps the Iran hostage crisis had just occurred. The American people were upset, and he wanted to come in and make that the keystone policy, that he could stand strong against that issue, and found Libya as a target at which he could direct his attention, perhaps.
I think that would be correct, because I think after Vietnam and the humiliation that the American forces went through,
indeed,
after the Iranian hostages, and also with the Reagan campaign of trying to give so-called the American image that he wants. I think he tried to use Libya as a good case, and he used the media by insinuating ideas which is not correct, and feeding them with false ideas about Libya, and accusing it of being a terrorist country, accusing it of being so things that I don't think he does not even believe. But unfortunately, he used it as a case against Libya, and but he was wrong, and he's wrong now. He tried almost everything against Libya, and he failed. I think he should think of other ways to meet us, instead of fight us. He can destroy cities, and he can destroy Libya, but he cannot destroy us as people. We chose to live our way, away from domination, away from dictating to us how to live and how to make friends with others. And I think he should accept the idea of a country to choose their ideologies, their policies, and I think this is the way to live together in peace and harmony.
It is interesting, Bob Woodward of the Washington Post, one of our major investigative reporters, has shown that there was a clear pattern of what is called disinformation, or of telling mistruths about Libya, that was instigated right from the very beginning of the Reagan administration, so that from the beginning, at official policy level, they were telling distruths and creating a myth about Libya that got through to the consciousness of the American people. I presume you in Libya have noted very clearly that fact, that there were lies being told about your country at an official policy level. It's very serious.
I think we've been telling that since I was in Washington. And I used to tell people that we, as a small country, we are trying to live in peace and harmony and build relation with countries based on peaceful coexistence and peaceful and mutual understanding. However, I think the Reagan administration, unfortunately, they used the media to give bad image about Libya.
Very definitely.
And he tried to really distort facts about what goes on in Libya and other places. And especially with Libya, I think they did Unfortunately, he used the media to really give bad images about Libya, and some people, to a certain degree, they believed it.
Oh, definitely.
After
yes.
a while, from repeating all these false stories about Libya, terrorism, and so forth, I think after a while they believed it themselves. And some of them, they were really scared. Unfortunately, we have good example, American who live here, an American who had a chance to visit this country to make better idea than the ideas what was told by the Reagan administration and unfortunately even by the media. I think they did almost everything to discredit this country in any way possible.
Yes.
By even lying directly to the people.
Directly lying
Yes.
as part of a policy objective to
Right.
create a public mood,
Yes.
and that is something that in a certain sense they ought to be called accountable to the American people.
Yes, I think it's against American tradition.
Mhm.
It's against American Constitution to engage in covert action and falsifying information just to prove that they have the right to commit a crime against the Libyan people.
The unfortunate result of this campaign and perhaps the ineptitude of some of the American people is that among the American people there is almost no understanding of the incredible things, positive things, that have been transpiring in Libya in the name of your revolution, that the events that have been taking place, the picture of Libya that the American people have is completely inappropriate, and if they had an understanding of that on a people-to-people basis, there might well be a better opportunity for there to be relations between Libya that would make sense in a certain sense, because there's a tremendous amount of positive things that are occurring here in Libya that the American people are completely unaware of.
That's true. I think if American people were given a chance to understand the Libyan people, to understand their aspiration and hopes, to live in peace with others, and to understand that they just want to be free and to be left alone. I'm sure they will appreciate not just having good relation with them, but also force any administration to build relations based on respect to other countries in order to avoid any unnecessary conflict and to set example from a country like the United States, which is supposed to be engaged in keeping peace and harmony in the world as a member of the Security Council, to find it engaged in direct killing civilian people. And you've seen for yourself some of the places they were telling American people as military target. I don't want to tell you anything, but you've seen for yourself.
I have indeed.
If they were military target or they were just innocent people, children, women, men, just staying in their homes, and they were hit by night by American airplanes. I think if Americans were, if they know the truth, I'm sure they will have good relation with Libya.
And definitely have good relations. If I may, not only the fact that there were children, women, innocent people, civilians killed by the American bombs makes it all more an act of open terrorism that the government of Mr. Reagan ought to be answerable for. But even if it had been only military targets that had been hit and bombed by our planes, and the fact that the information upon which they said Libya had been involved in something in Germany in a discotheque and Vienna and Rome and other rumors that they had helped create the basis for which they bombed the country, they had no basis, in fact, for bombing your country, military or civilian at all. And it's an act that ought to be brought perhaps before the International Court of Justice or some agency that could bring them to bear for this, what really was a terrorist act on the part of the United States against your country? It seems to me.
I think this is the duty of American people to put this administration and whoever was behind what took place. I think they have good reasons to ask them what took place, and they should know the whole facts about the American raid against Libya, and they should ask full information about the whole incident. I think the American administration are fully aware that all the charges, they know it was false, but they want to commit their action regardless of the facts, regardless of the charges, and they know that the action they have taken against Libya, it's not justifiable. Even if, let's assume for the sake of argument, if, for example, if an American, for example, individual American, was in charge, committed or accused of committing certain terrorist action, would it make it possible for other country to hit the United States just because of certain individual action? I think in the case of Libya, they did not have any proof that Libya was engaged in so-called terrorist action, and I think they made the whole story up. And after a while they believed it, and they tried to believe others to commit certain action. I think the revelation of the Iranian scandal, it shed some lights on what took place, just little. And I think the American, the Congress, I think they should ask, should have some kind of, they should invite people and ask them to testify about the American action against Libya, and what are the reasons behind it.
It's Representative Weiss of New York, I believe, and some others have, and the Judiciary Committee is moving. There are some who are suggesting the political tides of public opinion change and so forth, but there are those who have thought in terms of introducing bills of impeachment based upon the malfeasance or the illegal acts committed by the administration of Mr. Reagan, including the bombing of Libya. Whether that will move to fruition or not, but there ought to be some accounting for that, of that, because it was a very, very serious incident in the world of international affairs and ought to be got to the bottom of it.
I think it's not just illegal, it's immoral.
All right. Yes.
And I think American people, they should know better. I think the case of Vietnam, it should be a lesson. To repeat that kind of action against other countries by just sending F-111 or 6 fleets, just if a country happened to disagree with certain American policy, that's dangerous.
Yes, indeed.
And any other country could do the same with other countries. I think the American people, I know there are American people who are decent and who cares about other countries. And I think they should ask their congressmen to tell them what took place in the case of last year's raid against Libya. Why? Was it justifiable? What are the reasons for it? And even if certain action was committed against American interests, why Libya should be charged? Why?
Well, these are all questions that should be raised in the world of international, for the world understanding. Particularly, they should be raised in the United States in the interest of the people of the United States being able to understand what their government is doing and what our role in the world is. It's difficult, but it's a process that perhaps we're trying to help along here. I wonder if it is possible for you to conceive of the fact that there is a revolution that has been transpiring in Libya of a very large proportion since December or since September 1 of 1969, that in a very real sense at its ideological base calls exception to the basic premises of the capitalist system as well as the communist system of organization. If you got a sense that the people in the United States at a popular level or at a governmental level were in anywhere aware of the significance of that revolution as perhaps an example, and that they might have wanted to attack Libya not because of geostrategy, but because they wanted to attack the success of the Libyan revolution and to attack the idea of the Libyan revolution, as it were, so that the attack was done at an ideological basis. Do you think there's any possibility that they were taking objection to that, even though Libya is very small, the United States is very big, that Libya has an idea, and it's the idea that Libya is organizing itself in terms of, that was seen as the enemy by people in the State Department?
I think traditionally the difference between Libya and the United States were mainly because of political differences. We, after the revolution, we kicked out all American and other foreign bases from Libya. We were in control of our own material resources here. I think that upset some of the American administrations. They were not happy, and they were thinking that that shift will be in favor of the Soviet Union. This is why they were afraid that since Libya is not accepting the American side, so probably they will be shifting to the Soviet Union. Now,
because they see only a bipolar world. They don't see a third way, right?
So after 17 or 18 years, they know for sure that Libya is not a puppet.
Yes.
And for the same reasons, we don't want to be a puppet to the Americans. We don't want to be a puppet to the Soviet Union. And the Soviet Union, till today, they cannot even have refueling facilities in Libya in anywhere. And they know that it is hard for Libya to be attached or considered as part of the Soviet interest. Now I think the difference gets even greater because of the Libyan revolutionary role that plays in the Arab world, that plays in Africa, that plays worldwide. And I think, as you said it correctly, because of the revolutionary ideas that they are afraid that could change some of the ideas of people, because we were only asking in Libya that man should be free.
Yes.
Free politically, free economically, free socially. And if there is anything wrong against freedom, that means something is wrong. So I think American administration is afraid. Sometimes they said, what the Libyans are doing in Latin America, they are just knocking on our next door, and they are trying to stir revolution and trouble everywhere. I think we're only asking that people and man should be free wherever he or she is. If that's gonna make American administration unhappy, let them be unhappy. If they want to accept the idea, I think the American founders, it was based on to give freedom, and the even American Constitution was suggested that man should be free. So why they are afraid of revolution? The American foundation was based on revolution. Why they are against revolution? As if revolution is a bad word.
Maybe they've become old philosophically. The United States.
I really don't know, but I think they are against Brother Gaddafi because first, he's a real revolutionary. He's a man with a vision, and they are afraid of his ideas, and they don't want his ideas to be reached to the masses of people.
Well, we're interested here in conversation that getting at some of those ideas and the practical realities that have emerged from those ideas to show some of what is going on here in Libya to the American people. We're interested in making some of those ideas available to the American people so that the issue might be able to be judged in a little bit different context than the total lack of understanding of what Libya stands for that unfortunately makes up the consciousness of the American people, and unfortunately also the leadership seeming of the American people. And I'd like to think that this interview here, which is altogether too brief, has helped in starting us in that direction of helping to let the American people understand your country a little bit better than we unfortunately have in the past.
I think I agree with you. I think our main enemy in the United States is ignorance. And I think if American people give themselves a chance to understand what goes on in Libya and other places, I think we can have a better and a safer world.
Well, let's hope we can move in that direction. I want to just thank you very much for appreciating here in this segment, and to remind you in the cable television audience, then, it's been your perception here on this particular segment to have the views, the very succinct views. I'm sorry we could have gone and talking at great length, but the views of Ali Ahmed Houderi, who is a member of the People's Committee for Foreign Liaison Bureau, has responsibility, a wide-ranging responsibility for Libyan foreign policy, and of course was Libya's ambassador to the United States at the time of transition of the two administrations and the breakdown of relations, which, as I understand, has not yet officially actually been declared to have been severed, the relations between the two countries.
Not that I'm aware of. But, we lived in that. We are in that. I think officially it's not severed. But I think after what took place last year, we got close to being in undeclared war.
Yes, indeed, and that was not to be. That was to be laid at the doorstep of the fault of the American system, the people, to the degree they allowed it to happen. Certainly, to the leadership of the country, it would seem to us to be largely their responsibility. We're trying to get at some of the basic root understandings of that problem. And again, Dr. Houderi, thank you very, very much for participating. Please stay tuned in the cable audience. We'll be coming back with more from Libya, with people here that to give you some view of the developments in interesting developments in the Jamahariya. So there'll be more coming up momentarily. Mr. Houderi, once again, thank you very much indeed. Stay tuned. We're coming right back. Welcome very, very much to this segment of Conversations, where I'm very pleased to welcome to the program Dr. Mohammed Taher Jarari, and he is the General Director of the Libyan Studies Center here in Libya, in Tripoli, Libya. And Dr. Jarari, welcome very, very much to Conversations indeed. It's a great pleasure.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Harold. And it's, of course, a very good chance that we see you here in our country, and we are pleased to see you inside our center.
Yes.
And if there's anything we can do to assist you and to make your stay in this place easier and happier, we'll be glad to do it. And it's a good chance that we can have this easy, and despite the fact that it's a very quick one and unprepared conversation, but might turn out to be a good conversation.
Well, I'd like to say at the outset, you've had me on a tour of your institute. It's incredibly interesting. You have an archive of visual and audio and and written materials relating to the history of Libya, particularly the recent history of Libya. Incredibly interesting. You're the director of that. And as we begin with the series here, trying to get an understanding of Libya, it might be good for myself and for the American people to have a better sense of the history of it. It's an ancient country. Herodotus spoke of Libya. It goes way back. Maybe you can give a sense of what does Libya mean and some sense of ancient history.
Well, Libya is a very ancient country, shall I say. It's a deep-rooted country, geographically speaking, and people-wise too. It's been populated since at least 4000 BC. And well, shall I say, documented historically, starting from, say, 2000 BC, when we have the Egyptians start writing about the Libyan people. Of course, we have the rock painting in the south. Rock
painting. I've heard. Yes, I've not seen
where you can see hundreds of kilometers or miles painted and drawn by various painters of that time who depict different phases of life, so that you can see almost detailed daily life in the desert at that time. At that time it wasn't really a desert, it was sort of grassy area and forest and watery ground and things like that, and populated with the human being plus all sorts of animals.
Yes, right.
It was forest really at that time. So you can see people sort of plowing, grazing their animal and their plowing their land and things like that. And of course, starting from the Egyptian time, you will have a recorded history of the country.
Yes,
because of the contact between the Libyan and the Libyan tribes, really, and the Egyptian authority.
The Libyan tribes were referred to in the Egyptian, and does the Libya itself have a word, the meaning have a literal word meaning?
Yeah, it does. Libya as a word.
Yes.
Historically, according to what many historians sort of approve or many historians agreed on, is that it's a name of a tribe called Libo. The Libo tribe used to live in the eastern part of the country,
in the east,
and the Egyptian sources mention this tribe so many times, and the tribe name start to be generalized or start to be known, or it became, the whole country became to know by the name of this specific tribe, which used to live in the eastern part of the country.
Near Benghazi.
Yeah, near Benghazi, and it had so many wars with the Egyptians.
Yes.
The pharaohs, especially for Ramses.
And the Libyan people ethnically, they were Berber? No, they were unique, or?
Yeah, well, they are part of the Middle Eastern people, should I say?
Yes,
because of course, the Middle East witnesses so many waves of migration, especially from the east.
Surely.
From Saudi Arabia, what we know now is or the Arabian Peninsula. So many waves came from this peninsula, and especially Muhammad, or what after Muhammad, the wave after Muhammad, we can consider it one of the latest waves that came out of the Arabian Peninsula. But prior to that, there were so many waves, according to the recent historical studies, and a great deal of studies have been done now that shows even what we call Berber originated from that period, or from that land. They also came from the east, either from the Arabian Peninsula or from what we used to know Palestine, but there were also other waves of migration from other parts from the world.
But they were distinct from Egypt. Egypt, even in the Pharaoh time, saw Libya as distinct. The beginning of a nation that has begun to really find its flower in the modern experience. The Libyan nation its roots are deep as a nation, as a distinct people.
It was very distinct people from the Egyptian population, and they used to cause the Egyptians so many trouble because of the Libyan people were trying for better life, shall I say. They were moving toward the east where there is water, because because the Nile Valley was almost there, and it's a watery area, and here is a desert, and it was and still is basically the desert area. It's not really. Libya doesn't really have a good river or a big river like the Nile or like, for example, other. Say, for instance, what's in Iraq or other places where you have long, big rivers. So the Libyan, especially when there is drought,
very dry,
they start looking for a place. Either just grabbing whatever they can, or if they can have a permission to stay in there. So they used to cause some trouble to the Egyptian from time to time. Whenever there is lack of water here and overpopulation, they move either to the east or to the west. Sometimes move toward Tunisia.
And to the west, when people were there, that would have, again, it was to help them find a distinct culture that had its very deep roots, paleo-ethnologically, as Libya. And then there was contact with the Phoenicians, with the Persians, with the Greeks, with the Romans, and with all of the cultures around.
That's right.
There was a tremendously rich intermixture of the Libyan people with the broader cultures of the Mediterranean.
Very true. Of course, we have the Greek came here in the late 9th century BC, and they came to the eastern part. They founded Cyrene, and they founded the rest of the Pentapolis, what we call the 5 cities, and they remained there until the coming of the Romans. Of course, we have before them also late 9th century. We have the Phoenicians who came, and they, of course, they established or founded Carthage, Tunisia, and from there they spread toward the east, where they found Leptis Magna. I think you have seen the ruins of, or you have heard of it. They founded, originated by the Phoenician. Leptis Magna, Oya, it's another very important and famous Roman, and before that Phoenician city. And then you have Oya, which is the old city of Tripoli, which now, what we call Tripoli now, used to call Oya during the Phoenician time, and it's the same thing also during the Roman time. It maintains and the same name until the modern time, where it has been changed into Tripoli. So you have the Phoenician in one side, in the eastern part, and then you have the Greek in the eastern part, and then with the spread of the Roman civilization and with the Roman Empire, the whole country just got under control of the Romans, and it became sort of part of the Roman power. And then after the Roman, you have the Byzantine.
Yes, right.
After the Byzantine, you have the Arabs, and then the modern time.
The Ottomans.
The Ottoman and the Italian.
And it has been the Libya itself really emerged in 1951 as a distinct new nation in itself. So it's a real birth of a nation, and yet with cultural roots that go back so far that have been. A lot of this used to refer to all of North Africa as Libya.
Absolutely correct. The whole
and it fed Athens. They fed Athens with grain from here. There was a tremendous trade between 5th century Greece and here.
Libya was rich at that time, and in so many times they, at least Caesar, the Roman emperor, imposed the duty yearly to be paid to Rome on Libyan people and on all of North African cities. But Oya, Leptis Magna, Sabrata, they used to pay annual amount of olive oil, annual amount of grains to Roman authority in Rome.
I thank you very, very much. We're going to go in great depth as we study more and more the ancient history. We want to go into all of that, but your center here, the center, is particularly concerned with the period that they call us here as the struggle, in a sense, and I wonder if maybe we could focus on that, because we're talking about the period of well, the Ottomans were here from 1551 until, 1911 or so, and then the Italians were here in a colonial sense, and it was a period of tremendous struggle that I think probably people in the United States are not aware of. You're particularly interested in documenting that struggle against the Italian colonial power, and particularly under the fascist Italian, because it resulted in tremendous devastation to Libya that's generally not understood. You people have suffered a Holocaust under the Italians here that is not generally understood and should be documented.
Yeah, I think the center here, what we call Libyan Study Center or Libyan Jihad Center, is basically concerned with the history of Libya in general. That's from the remotest time to the present, or at least until 1969, to the date of the Great Fatah Revolution. So, with a concentration on the Italian invasion to the Libyan land, or the Libyan against Libyan population as a whole. So that which occurred in 1911, of course, expectedly and unexpectedly, because on one side you have a great power at the time, which was the Ottoman Empire, sort of controlling the country, and we were under the rule of the Ottoman Empire as, or should I say, or most of the Islamic world at that time. But because of that, some people were not expecting that any foreign invasion will come to their country. But at that time, in late 19th century, early 20th, there was this sort of, which is well known, competition, shall I say, or Europe invasion to the Middle East in general. That's Britain, colonialism. Britain took part of the area, France took part of the area, and Italy sought at that time and thought that it's her right to get her share in that. Shall we say cake?
Yes, right.
This is not apple pie, but human pie.
Right, indeed.
So, I mean, they came late, of course, on the show, because the French and the British came before them. But they did their best to get a large chunk of the land, and that was Libya. This is why. And of course, there was so many maneuver inside, and sort of treatment and agreement between the great power at the time to share the area. And then, without getting into the detail, Italy was granted the right to have Libya. And so they invaded the country in 1911 against the will of the people.
Yeah, definitely.
And of course that was faced with so many struggle, and any struggle, of course, was faced with brutality from the Italian authority, and that brought so many bloodshedding. Thousands of people.
Had there been serious objection to Ottoman control? The Ottomans had been here since 1551.
No, there wasn't, because
at least it wasn't the West.
No. It wasn't actually a serious negation or a serious refusal to Ottoman because of religion ties together. And of course, up until the 19th century, religious feeling was so strong, totally, universally, not only in the Islamic world. But after that, of course, with the rise of national feeling and nationalism, and with the rise of nations, and every nation should, and with the rise of linguistic differences between every part and the other of the world. So with the rise of nationalism, this notion of Ottoman ruling or Turkish rules Arab, it wasn't really well censored or well refused until after the intervention of the colonial power.
The colonial power
in general.
It's the European invasion of the Semitic world.
That's exactly how it. Unfortunate how
it should be seen that way.
Look at it, and
it was the Italian occupation was done with great brutality, and little known to the American people that the Libyan population
lost half
of its population was decimated. Concentration camps, mass hangings, and it was a Holocaust that was delivered down upon Libya during that time.
I mean, Mr. Howard, it's unknown fact that we have lost at least half of our population in that brutal war, which was not, there was no need for it.
Literally half the population.
I mean, literally half of the population documented, not only just sort of blah blah blah, because here we are talking scientifically and hopefully
at the center, it's very scientific, and you're documenting.
So we are documenting that. We have a census done to the Libyan population during the Ottoman period,
yes,
and we have that done later in the Italian period, that's in 1930, and when you subtract the two numbers, the previous one during the Ottoman and the last one during the Italian, you'll find more, I mean, at least half of the population were not there, either annihilated or immigrated or exiled, just kicked out. And we have inside this center, we have thousands of documents which reflect and show that, whether that's a written document or picturistic. I mean,
yes,
you can just
yes,
have a picture. And
pictures, yes.
I do ask you to just to show your, your audience and your viewer some of these pictures so that they can see. We're not here to judge, or we're not here actually to sort of criminalize or whatever the English word that you can use. But it's a historical fact that we as Libyan feel that universally should be known.
Absolutely. I mean,
we have suffered from colonialism.
Yes, as it should be known about the Holocaust delivered down on the Jewish people by Nazi Germany, it should be known about the Holocaust delivered down on the Libyans by the Italian fascists.
A human being is a human being, whether it's Jews or whether it's Arabs or whether inside the Arab nation, whether it's Libyan or whatever it is. We regard any brutality is something, or any mal deeds by any government against another, or any people against other people, is something refused and something negated and something should be condemned by all human beings.
Indeed.
And this is why we now, as a Libyan people, sometimes we feel surprised that they accuse us of terrorism and things, because we are the most people who suffered from
terrorism. You have
terrorism.
suffered more under terrorism than any nation in the world.
And maybe half of our population been killed by colonial terrorism and colonial imperialism. And I think we as a Libyan people will never agree or will never help any people or any person or any government that can go for terrorism, because we are well aware of what terrorism means. So going back to our point of discussion,
of the
Italian time,
there was resistance to that.
There was resistance. Omar Mukhtar is one of the personalities, but there were hundreds of Omar Mukhtar. I mean, if but he is forced.
He emerged as a George Washington, as a real leader of the resistance to that, and he was a major figure.
Yeah, because he's a major figure. He's the one who's actually insisting on the death, despite the fact that he was giving all sorts of temptation. He was giving money, palaces. He was tempted with with all sorts of temptation, but he refuses. He refused all this kind of things, and he insisted on one thing, that his country should be liberated and the invader should go back. And of course, the Italian had a modernized machinery war, by which they were able to conquer the Libyan resistance, and they were able finally to liquidate all sorts of resistance and to control the country. But
you have then a book that you published, the Center has published, is called Pictures of the Struggle, in Arabic in a certain sense, and maybe you could let us know what is it. This has to do particularly with that period of the struggle against the Italian fascists.
Right? This center has published so many books, about 50 books so far, and as part of its job as any other scientific center, it does research and publishing. So this is one of the books that we published, and this book documents the struggle of the Libyan against Italian colonial invasion. Okay, so there are so many pictures. Of course, some of them traditional. You can see, for instance, traditional material here inside. Some old buildings.
There's
some figures, yeah.
Some things that give a sense of the...
Yeah, some figures of the resistance figures. Yeah.
Yes.
The people who participate in the war against...
These would be peoples of the countryside.
Yeah, most of them people of the countryside, of course.
And the one below it is pictures of the military officers of the Italians?
That's right, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And this is one of these, this is the place of the Battle of Gardabiya.
This
one
is
of the Gardabiya. It's one of the biggest battle which where the Libyan people consider it as the most victorious battle for them against the Italians.
Against the Italians.
So here this is why we picture, because this is the ground where the battle happened, and here where so many Italians actually unfortunately died because they came to the country without no justification whatsoever. At least now. So this is the Gardabiya. It's called the Battle of Gardabiya. This is the ground of the Battle of Gardabiya. And then we have other pictures which depict this, for instance, the atrocity and the suffering of the Libyan people on the colonial authority at that time. This is hanging. Here is also firing the squads. Here you have so many pictures of those that reflects the brutality of a human being sometimes when they lose their senses and where they really get into mad situation. And here you can see.
And again, back to that startling fact that there was half of your population decimated during this.
I think the pictures here in this book can really
here you can see
verify what we are saying and can really also stood as a document and as a proof for that atrocity and that suffering.
And there was resistance to this. Look
at this picture. You can see
tremendous
piles of human bodies here.
There were concentration camps. There were concentration camps with barbed wire, and they suffered the inhumanity of...
Thousands of people were taken by force and concentrated in narrow places, and they were, of course, you'll find around them this wire. They were put in this specific or known places, and they were guarded around the hour, and inside these places they were put 1,000 of people. Hundreds, sometimes hundreds of thousands. They were just put in one place, and they left there with very minor food, which make diseases and illness to spread easily around so many of them. This is why we lost so many people in these concentration camps, and especially in the eastern part of the country. And we regard this concentration camp as the places where I think Nazism and the Nazi regime learned how to deal with its enemy, because hundreds of thousands of Libyan people were pushed in a very narrow places, and they were left alone there without nothing, just because they went there to die. That's basically
against the elements.
Against the element, and we have picture for that. I wish you could put that also to show just how people suffered here from this kind of unhuman.
And I might just say that, I might just say apropos of the Institute here, this book is just a small representation of a tremendously rich visual and verbal. You've done interviews with some of the older people who remember that time. You're documenting this. It's like a Holocaust center, in a sense, that you have here to remember the Libyan Holocaust and the suffering of the Libyan people.
That's exactly
out of which the Libyan nation was only born in the very recent year of 1951, out of great and tremendous suffering.
That's exactly.
A fact that's often lost, I think, perhaps on the American people understanding of Libya.
It is too bad. And no, that we suffered so much, and what we are. Some people say, well, you don't deserve, sometimes, and unfortunately I spoke with some people who say, you don't deserve the oil that you are enjoying the benefit now. But they don't know that we have, at least, just starting from 1911 until now, we lost hundreds of thousands of people.
Yes, indeed.
Defending our land and defending our liberty, and we are not just sort of mushroom comes out of our land without any roots. We have deep roots in this land.
4,000 BC.
We defended this land, and we are free people. We know exactly what freedom means, and this is why we always been a liberty people, a freedom fighter, and we never actually accept anything less than freedom. And in this center, what we are trying to do is just to collect and make real and make known the history of this country and the history of the struggle of these people as part of the Arab people.
Yeah, and this country has been, in a very real sense, particularly right into the modern experience, a history of struggle or jihad against the difficulties of invaders. And sad to say, in a certain sense, that continues in a certain sense in the attitude of the United States government. We recently bombed your country, which is a very unfortunate kind of event, and that's part of a continuing sense of struggle on your part. But the nation has emerged from that since 1951 only.
That's exactly, and I hope that your interview will clarify some of the points that we wanted to get into the European and to the American mind, and to see that we have nothing against Europe now, we have nothing against the American, but of course, when it comes to invaders and when it comes to colonial invasion, and when it comes to people who wants to take your land or who wants to...
You've had experience with that before, and you want no more. Now that you stand independent.
That's absolutely...
And you know you don't want that because you've experienced colonialism firsthand. And it is, in a certain sense, seen perhaps as an anti-Semitic quality to the Western imperialism or European imperialism into the Semitic world, which is another issue that we can't go into in any depth. But it is an anti-Semitic kind of thing because we're dealing with the Semitic world vis-a-vis the European
it's anti-Semitic, but there is one clarification I would like to make, because anti-Semitic understood in the States as if it's anti-Jews, but we consider ourselves as Semitic too.
Absolutely, the biggest Semitic group.
Yeah, but when you say anti-Semitic in Europe, or they consider it only anti-Jewish.
Well, but they should think differently.
Yeah, they consider,
there was a Semitic Holocaust here.
I think we started the suffering here before our brother Jew did it in Germany. We suffered here more.
We could go on talking about 16 hours easily.
That's a
tremendous pleasure.
Well, thank you so much.
And it's only just been we wanted to try and get a start with the institute. Maybe you can help me out here. I'm sorry. The name of the institute. Oh, here.
It's the Libyan Study Center.
I would remind you, it's been your pleasure to have such a Dr. Mohammed, graduate of Madison, right?
Yeah, Madison, Wisconsin.
Madison, Tahir Jahari. He's the director of the general director of the Libyan Study Center. Libyan Study Center, an incredibly rich historical center here in Libya, Tripoli, Libya. Happy to have been able to bring you those perceptions. We invite you to tune in again next week. We'll be coming back next week. That's it for this particular segment. See you next week, Dr. Jahari. Once again, thank you very, very much indeed.
Thank you so much.
Good night. See you next week.